This episode of Midco Sports Magazine is presented by Shields and Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Hello, welcome again to Midco Sports Magazine. Resilience is our theme this month, the ability to adapt and come back despite difficult circumstances. And that is the theme that runs through all of our stories this month. We have an adaptive athlete from Fargo, North Dakota, who has traveled to South Korea as an ambassador for social change. And a local referee nearly lost his life on the court, but he has made the call to get back to officiating. But we start with a young wrestler who is the definition of resilient. Back on the mat after an accident nearly took his legs and his life. Here's Elena Lanson.
When you're a high school athlete, the start of a new year is often a chance to get back into an old routine. Hunter Peterson wanted nothing more than to get back on the football field in mid-August for his junior season. A multi-sport athlete, coming off a sophomore campaign that featured a second-place finish in the state wrestling tournament, Hunter had both challenges and expectations right in front of him. But on August 13th, mere days ahead of the season opener, Hunter would be faced with a challenge unlike any other. He was working on his grandfather's farm when something unexpected happened.
I called my brother and had him go check on him, and we knew that he never made it back to his vehicle.
It was 9:30 at night, probably before anybody had found him, and they called us right away.
Hunter had been trapped under a piece of equipment, face down, his legs underneath, with no way to get help and his phone nowhere to be found.
I don't remember the actual wreck or anything. I was stuck underneath the thing for 5-6 hours, I don't know.
My husband had already taken off when we knew he was missing. And so I was at the house doing a lot of praying. Once I knew they were heading to town, we met them.
He was in the backseat of the car by the time I got there. Within a mile, we hit a bump, and I knew it was bad then.
Hunter's father and uncle took him by car 30 miles into town, where they met the ambulance that then took him another 80 miles to Rapid City, South Dakota.
He was in horrible pain.
I did talk to my husband, and I could just hear him screaming in the background.
I mean, I tried to be tough for him, I guess, because we really didn't know what was going to happen to his legs.
I remember them saying that I would never walk again, and they might have to cut off this leg.
His first few surgeries, he had plates and screws in his one leg. And then his right leg, he had the compartment syndrome. That's where they have so much pressure. They go in and cut both sides of the leg open to relieve some of that.
And I was shocked. I mean, I didn't know, so we started contacting him and found out how serious it really was. Yeah, the whole community was just set back by it. He's a big part of our community.
After 10 days in Rapid City, Hunter was transferred to Lincoln, Nebraska, where he would spend nearly 3 months trying to climb an uphill battle.
Really, he just felt pathetic is what he kept telling me. Somebody who's, big and strong and can do everything on their own, and then he couldn't even move without assistance.
I didn't want him to see me crying or whatever, and I wanted him to think that I thought he was going to be fine.
The physical pain was unbearable, but the mental side of this injury was just as grueling.
I didn't think I'd play sports again, probably.
And he's always really loved football, and they were just days from their first game.
I was pretty disappointed, I guess. I had to miss football and wrestling.
He'd kind of given up, to be honest. You could tell. You could see it in his eyes.
But a support system within the community wouldn't let Hunter get pinned by this opponent.
I was getting phone calls and texts from all across the state. Other coaches, high school, college coaches and stuff are contacting our whole community and stuff.
I mean, within days, the wrestling community especially sent cards and gifts and more junk food than you can imagine.
Through the community and stuff, we sent up some fundraisers, and then we had a feed and all kinds of stuff. Everyone in the community did a great job jumping in.
Felt good. I got cards and t-shirts.
And it was just amazing. I mean, there's no even thank yous that you can say enough because everyone was so generous.
With friends, family, and even complete strangers behind him, Hunter started to emerge from his shell, allowing his old self to shine through.
He was very depressed and going through just a hard time emotionally. And he, he'd say to me, "Mom, I don't think I'm ever going to be who I was before." But I think it did make him work harder because he knew, he was wanting to be back here.
Taking his first steps nearly 2 months after his accident, Hunter had a few goals in mind.
I got hurt about a week before school started, and I missed the first 11 weeks.
He's a very intelligent kid, and certain things come very easy for him. And he had to put a lot of time in and make up a lot of work, and he did.
By continuing therapy 3 times a week, Hunter has regained the ability to run, balance on both legs, and is now able to practice again.
I'm wrestling again, so it's a little bit back to normal.
Even though he is a man of few words, Hunter's determination and persistence speaks volumes.
How far he's come is beyond belief, really.
There will probably always be stuff that he has to work through, but is just determined and has came a long way. And I guess that just makes my heart happy as a mom to know that we've made it this far.
And joined by Elena Lanson. And you got to go back to, I think, the 90s, but everybody knows who Lincoln McElravy is from Phillip. And Lincoln and Hunter are related somehow, right?
Yes, they're distant relatives, and they actually are going and went to the same high school, so they have that in common. And obviously, Phillip, South Dakota is a gold mine for wrestlers. Lincoln won the bronze in the Sydney Olympics, and then he also won 5 state titles there in high school. And Hunter's there now, and he's getting back on the mats.
All right, very cool. Thanks a lot, Elena Lanson. Up next, from Fargo to South Korea, an adaptive athlete working halfway across the world to make the world a better place.
Midco Sports Magazine on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields and Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Welcome back. We go to Fargo and then halfway around the world to South Korea in our next story. It's about an adaptive athlete working to bring about social change. Here's Greg Ankers.
Bryn Duncan navigates her life like many do as a teenager involved in sports.
Bryn is a great student athlete. She comes in here and she's ready to work. There's some play, there's some sweat.
Scares the bejesus out of me because she's got no fear. And there's times where I'm just like, hey, you need to, ease back, because she's willing to try it, or she'll try to figure out a way to do it. So I think that'll take her far just because she doesn't have as much fear.
There was a time, however, when all Bryn and her family had in their life was fear. Bryn was involved in a life-altering car accident when she was 7 years old. Most of her internal organs were damaged, and the diagnosis only got worse from there.
My biggest concern was she going to live through it. Nobody said the word paralyzed, they just kept saying spinal cord injury.
My first question was, am I disabled? I didn't know the extent of it, that was my only question. And when I was told yes, I went into depression for quite a while. I wouldn't talk to anybody or anything, and so I was very upset, and I thought my life was completely over. I didn't think I'd ever be able to do anything again.
As an active child, Bryn's activities came to an abrupt halt, most notably in figure skating.
She was always in the Moorhead ice show, and so that was something very difficult for all of us because her sisters were continuing in the ice show, and that year she wouldn't get to. I talked to the ice show people, and they said if we could figure something out, they'd put her out in the show. So I wanted to get her to open recreational ice skating. And the first time I took her, we put the sled out there. We brought a friend, so she would be in a sled too. And I picked her up out of her chair to put her on the ice, and she just laid in my shoulder, just whispering in my ear, please don't do this to me, don't do this to me, don't do this to me. And she's crying. And I'm trying not to cry, and she's just like, please don't. She was, because everybody's looking at her, what's this weird contraption she's getting in. I put her in it, and she's just sitting there just shaking, going, don't make me do this, don't make me do this. And it's the hardest thing as a mom, And I was like, just go around the ice one time and then we'll talk again. Okay, I said, just give me one lap. She went around once, she didn't stop. She went around twice, she didn't stop. She came back, she goes, I love this.
Within just 2 years of her accident, Bryn was actively involved in sled hockey, as well as downhill monoski. Her outgoing personality, along with her natural athletic ability, earned her an opportunity to try out for the women's national sled hockey team at just 14 years of age.
And everyone gets this email, so it's not like anything big. So I'm reading it, and I get down to like the names of the people who made that team. Hold up. So I go through and I read the names again, and I'm like, I made the team. And I look at her, I'm like, I made the team. And then I start screaming, I'm like, oh my gosh, I made the team.
Bryn's experience playing for the national squad continues to help fuel her willingness to go anywhere and try anything. This past month, she traveled with a special group to the Paralympic Games in South Korea in an effort to mentor young children as they adapt their disabilities to snow sports. It's an experience that may have taken Bryn halfway across the world, but the lasting impact certainly hits close to home.
There's one little boy that he was 7 years old. So I automatically was just like, this is gonna be so fun. He was so scared. And so there's a little part at the bottom of the hill that you can walk up and then ski down. And he had been on that all week, really hadn't gone up the mountain or anything, and we were like, hey, we should go up the mountain. And so he was like, yeah, okay. And we got to the top and he was terrified. He started crying, he goes, I'm scared, like I can't do it. And we're like, you can do it, like you're okay. And we got to the bottom and he looks at us and he goes, again! And we're like, yes! Just being able to see him transition from I'm so scared to so excited to do it again was so cool because I saw myself in him.
A moment of fear turned into an everlasting positive, something Bryn knows a lot about, and something she will undoubtedly pass on in the future at every opportunity that she gets.
Still to come, Jeff Schroder and his miraculous comeback to the court as a basketball official. But first, this month's Science of Sports with former Sioux Falls O'Gorman star and current San Diego Padre Dusty Coleman.
Sports science is really understanding the physiology and the biomechanics behind athletic performance and health and safety. So we had Dusty performing a drill with the fit lights where he had to react to the lights going off and use his glove to touch those lights. This really recreates the situation that a baseball player faces of having to react very quickly to a hit ball on the baseball field. The ability to coordinate vision with reactive movement is very important for a professional baseball player.
Midco Sports Magazine on Midco Sports Network is presented by Shields and Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.
Welcome back. One more story of resilience this month, and you've heard the phrase, it's better to be lucky than good. Well, this is a story about a basketball official who believes that luck played a huge part in his survival after he suffered a heart attack on the court. Here's David Brown.
Throughout the course of a basketball game, a referee will make dozens of calls. Some are obvious, some are questionable, and some can even be unexplainable, at least to hardcore fans.
It is actually fun to watch them, and it's kind of comical when you're sitting by people and they don't know you're there with the referees. Some of the stuff that they say, you're just like, are you kidding me? But yeah, you just let it go in one ear and out the other.
In the stands, it's easier to hear the insults. But down on the floor, Jeff Schroder couldn't care less about what's going on around him, only what's right in front of him.
My dad did it for years, and I started going with him when I was 4 years old.
A nearly lifelong passion has allowed Jeff to referee at both the high school and college level.
Basketball's definitely my favorite sport to referee. The one I consider myself to probably be the best at. You know, maybe other people don't agree with me on that.
Years of thick skin have given Jeff a good sense of humor about his part-time job. He never concerns himself with the calls he makes. But one day, unexpectedly, a call would be taken out of his hands. December 31st, 2017, Marshall, Minnesota. Jeff and two friends are officiating an afternoon matinee between Wayne State and Southwest Minnesota State in the NSIC. A new year was on the horizon, but Jeff simply wanted a week-long cold to go away.
So I got up on Sunday, everything was fine. I actually went out, I scooped the driveway out on Sunday. No issues, no nothing. Met my partner, went to the game.
Near the end of the first half, Jeff started to feel fatigue. He assumed it was just a residual effect of his cold, but at halftime, sitting with his crew in the locker room, he thought about just staying put.
You know, I looked over at my partner and I just said, hey, you guys might have to finish this with two because I'm exhausted. You know, I was just having problems, you know, getting up and down the floor.
Eventually, Jeff decided to try and finish the game. About midway through the second half, Jeff started stumbling on his way back down the court before collapsing.
It was actually really weird because I could hear everything, you know, just like normal. And then everything just went silent, but everything was still going on. You know, the game. It's like a movie, you know, it just, and then just got silent. And my legs just flat gave out.
Jeff had suffered a heart attack. Thanks to some quick thinking by those in attendance, as well as the use of an automated external defibrillator, or AED, Jeff was revived.
I don't remember anything at the gym. Apparently, after they shocked me, I was talking to them right away. You know, things like that, but I don't remember any of that.
Jeff was airlifted from Marshall to Sioux Falls, where his wife, two kids, and friends in the officiating community were standing by. The next day, Jeff underwent emergency quadruple bypass surgery. It was only after the procedure that Jeff learned what actually happened.
I never would have ever guessed at 46 years old that I was going to have a heart attack. If you'd have told me that day when I woke up, you're going to have a heart attack on the basketball floor, I would have said, you're crazy.
What was even more shocking to Jeff was hearing his doctor tell him it was only a matter of time before something like this happened.
I looked at him straight in the face and I said, did this happen for me reffing this game? And he said, by all means, no. This could have happened the next day walking out to get the mail. It had been building in my inside of me since, he said, in my 20s, probably, you know. So it just so happened that was the night that it happened.
Doctors told Jeff the episode was likely hereditary. Jeff's grandfather also suffered a heart attack roughly around the same age, and Jeff's mom also underwent quadruple bypass surgery nearly 20 years ago.
I've been down this road with a few people in my own family, so I kind of knew what to expect. And I knew I was going to have my hands full with recovery after the fact because it's a long procedure and it's a long getting back on the road to recovery. And for me, I just had to wrap my brain around it.
I told them that when I'm done with physical therapy, I wanted to be running.
For the time being, Jeff runs on a treadmill, trying to get back to full strength. His rehabilitation has taken up most of this winter and spring, but the end of the tunnel is in sight. He wants to get back on the court.
That's one of my biggest goals that I have, is to get back to that. That's been hard, not being able to go, you know, 3 nights out of the week with my buddies.
I 100% guarantee he'll be back out there refereeing next year. It's what he loves to do. He's got a passion for it, and I just think all the referees are waiting for him to come back.
For all the calls he's made over the years, it's the one he didn't make that's given Jeff the most perspective. Referees never want to control the game, they simply want to keep things in order. So the fact that Jeff kept officiating that fateful New Year's Eve, instead of staying in the locker room to rest, shows that in the end, his judgment has never been better.
Thank goodness, or it happened how it did, and I didn't get in a car with somebody, or, you know, I wasn't walking out and grabbing the mail or whatever. It apparently was meant where it happened for a reason. Still looking for that reason, but, you know, it wouldn't have been a very good outcome, I don't think, if it would have happened somewhere else.
Had he stayed home, it would have not have been a good outcome, and I would have been planning other things other than going and having him have surgery and working through that.
For what they told me what I had, I probably wouldn't be here today.
And joined now by David Brown. Brownie, Jeff obviously wants individuals to be aware of their own heart health, but how is he working with schools and with gymnasiums as part of that?
Well, obviously, there were a bunch of factors that contributed to the fact that Jeff didn't lose his life on New Year's Eve after suffering that heart attack. But the most important factor, honestly, was the AED on hand at Southwest Minnesota State's gym. An AED can help assess a patient's health and determine a course of action after that. And he wants every NSIC school, and frankly, every high school in America, to have one of those devices on hand in gyms. You never know when an emergency like this is going to happen. There's no sort of grand statistical study that proves anything, but more often than not, we've seen story after story of how an AED on hand in a high school gym has helped save someone's life.
Be prepared, and that's what he wants to get the message out. Right?
Absolutely. Heart health and making sure schools have the proper equipment in case an emergency strikes.
Right on. Thanks a lot. David Brown. Thank you for watching. You can find this episode and all episodes of Midco Sports Magazine on YouTube.
This has been Midco Sports Magazine, presented by Shields and Sanford Orthopedics and Sports Medicine.